I really don't like following people who are more talented than I am. So luckily I have Sue here with me to help cover for me. So thank you for being here today, Sue. I'd like to start with with Ben. I start with a softball, so I'll start with you too. Talk a little bit about where Care of Chan came from and what experiences led up to that, and what you're involved in now.
Yeah. So Care of Chan, actually some of my team is here. I don't know where you guys are, but Care of Chan is a brand management agency. We represent chefs, restaurants, and food brands. We specialize in communications, event production, and talent management in the food space. And prior to that, I was at Momofuku for almost 7 years as the brand director.
Okay, and how old is Care of Chan now?
Officially founded in 2016, so just a couple of years now.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, the restaurant and the idea of food-related events have taken on kind of a new importance as kind of a gathering space in our very digital world, where you experience as much at home as you do out in public space. What is it about restaurants in general and food in particular that make it such an experience-driving thing?
Right. Well, as we all know, in this digital age, it becomes harder and harder to connect. And I think people definitely look to the restaurant experience as a place to connect with friends and family. And I think a big part of that, too, is millennials especially are spending their money differently these days. And 3 out of 4 millennials, for example, are spending money on experiences. And I think a lot of things kind of lead to that. One, social media has created this desire and need to get content, to collect content, and to share your experiences. Eating in a restaurant is a way to connect with your friends and family in person, in real life. And then also, millennials are spending their money differently. So whereas before, millennials would spend their money, or past generations would spend their money by saving up for like a car or a home, millennials now are okay with spending $15 on an avocado toast, but they might not necessarily spend that money on saving up for a car.
So that economist was right in blaming avocado toast on the lack
Yes.
of home ownership in America?
Yeah, exactly. Those are definitely related. Avocado toast, going up, home ownership going down,
So, we're here in New York, and, a lot of big restaurants are in major cities and things like that. Is this something that is tied to major cities, or is this more of kind of a movement that, you're as likely to see in, Nashville or Philadelphia as you are in a major city?
Yeah, I think that generally speaking, bigger cultural shifts tend to happen in bigger markets and urban settings, but there will always be a trickle-down effect, and it will influence other parts of the country. And this experience economy that we're in wasn't invented recently. I think the first article about it was in 1998, and it's been around for a while. So Disney is a really good example of someone who created this experience economy and continues to deliver on it year in, year out. And even chain restaurants like TGI Fridays, they are part of the experience economy because the whole idea is that the standard of food and the standard of service has just gone up across the board, right? So even Starbucks is serving cold brew, whereas a couple of years ago you would have only seen cold brew at a third wave coffee shop. Now it's everywhere. And so if the quality of food and service has gone up, the only thing to really stand out from the pack is to offer an experience. And we've been seeing people do it for a while now, and I don't necessarily think it's a trend, nor is it something that is only happening in urban cities. Of course, we'll see more of a trickle-down effect across the board, but people have been doing it since 1998. From the 90s.
I had what I thought was a really smart follow-up, but you already torpedoed it. It was, can you do experience at scale? And I think that, forgetting that Disney exists, of course you can. But as as we kind of strive for more exclusive experience, like there's in travel, the idea is, the last luxury is actually experiences. It's not necessarily things decked out in gold, but there is an exclusivity element to experiences. How do you, how important do you think that exclusivity is for people in making decisions of what to attend? And
what's interesting? I feel like there doesn't need to be an exclusivity tied to an experience in order to make that experience, in order to make it defined as an experience, because an experience is so personal, right? Like, you and I can both go to Carbone and have a completely different experience, and that's very personal to us. And there doesn't have to be any exclusivity tied to that. And whereas, like, I do think if it is an exclusive experience, that's just like part of the story. And I think one of the reasons why we love experiences is the stories that we get to tell from them, right? Studies show that you find more happiness spending money on an experience than you do on a material good. And why is that? It's because there's a story to tell about it. Even waiting in line for a cronut, that's part of the story. I waited 30 minutes in line for this cronut. That's like part of the narrative, right? It's so much more exciting than just saying, I just walked in and grabbed a cronut, right? So while exclusivity definitely adds to the story and adds to the experience, I don't think you necessarily have to like offer an exclusive experience in order to have it be memorable or have it be a good or successful marketing tool. Yeah.
In terms of you and creating experiences and what you guys do, we were talking earlier, and you talked a bit about the not turning your phone off by accident thing. That was me. And lost train of thought. So let's go back to what I remember. So in terms of who actually goes to events and goes out, like, I've reached the age where I just want to stay home unless it's something that I know I can get into. So I assume that now it's really hard to get people to engage, because we do like being, having things brought to us and having your device. How easy is it or hard is it to get people to come out?
Yeah, I mean, of course, just like with everything, I feel like the internet's ruining everything, right? It's like everything becomes so saturated, and like one person has a great idea and then everyone starts doing it. So of course now everyone, because they read that experiences are the thing, everyone's doing experiences. And of course, at a certain point there's a saturation point, and so how do you stand out from the noise? And I think that it's important for restaurants or any brand to create experiences that are unique to them and unique to their value system, that, have a theme, and everything about the event kind of ties back to that theme, has purpose and meaning, and adds value to the lives of the people in attendance. And then also, what's the most important thing about building experiences is like building towards a community. So that's something that we definitely tell our clients is, what kind of community are you trying to build with everything that you do? Because as we all know, and this is something we struggle with in the communications department, press hits don't necessarily equal more customers in the door. Instead, what we tell our clients to do is that it's really important to focus on building a network, a circle, friends and family, a community around their brands. And I think experiences, when done right, can really do that.
Do you talk with brands about the story that they want people to tell when they leave?
Definitely, and I think when we help brands come up with events and experiential activations and marketing tools, we definitely think of that. Like, does it make sense for what message they're trying to get across? Does it make sense in this market? An event that you do in LA is very different than an event you do in New York, different than Austin, Texas. So we definitely do encourage our clients to think about it from like a holistic perspective, not just like, okay, we're gonna throw a DJ, have a good DJ, and good food and good drinks. It's about more than that. It's about creating, memorable touch points within that as well.
And how do you communicate with clients about kind of your curatorial responsibilities to like, hey, trust me on this DJ that matches with this chef and things like that?
Yeah, well, We like to work with clients who trust us and who understand that it's a partnership and that we're bringing just as much to the table as they are. We don't work well with people who insist on telling us, acting like, well, because this is our area of expertise. And so hopefully you're hiring us for that expertise and trust us to deliver that to the conversation. So we work the best with clients who kind of meet us in the middle, and it's a collaboration and a partnership.
So when you're creating experiences and activations and things like that, and working with chefs in a restaurant, how much is it for the experience of that moment, and how much of it is for sharing on social later?
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely something that, I mean, you're seeing like lots of fast casual restaurants, for example, pop up that want that Instagram look, right? So like the quirky mirror that someone can take a selfie on, or like the crazy colorful plateware that someone can take an overhead food shot on.
Well, people do that?
Yeah, I know. It's kind of annoying. I hope it does soon. But I think that if you focus on creating meaning and purpose in the event, that those Instagram moments will just naturally happen. Will just naturally happen.
I was thinking I was waiting in line at a restaurant with a neon sign a few months ago, and I was like, this is...
Yeah, whoever's making neon has made a lot of money, I feel like, in the last couple of years.
Neon and lines and Instagram are just like made for each other.
And avocados.
And I like all three. We actually have a neon sign at Skift headquarters, and you have to wait in line because it's a popular place.
Now it's just a standard. Like the word curation is just something that we all use, right?
Yeah. And as somebody who actually curates, like, how do you kind of cut through the noise and curation, and especially with clients, be like, no, this is what that means for you as a brand.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't want to make it sound so clinical, but it is all about understanding who the target market is and who speaks to that target market. It's that simple. I mean, it's like, marketing 101. So I think curating has to do with just understanding the landscape and the demographics that you're trying to target, and then creating programming around that.
Food is aspirational in many ways, even though it's something that...
But you have to eat 3 times a day, and everyone has to eat. So it doesn't have to be aspirational. But
That's a great point. And I think that, though, brands who aren't related to food want to use food to help get across messages. What is it about, food and restaurant culture that is, everybody wants that?
Well, I think in this digital age, food is like the last thing that can't be downloaded, right? Like art, music, film, everything can be downloaded, it can be pirated, it can be enjoyed online. Food and eating food is still the last thing that can't be downloaded. And so that's really the last thing that people can genuinely connect over. And I think that that's a big part in why brands are trying to enter into the food space. And also, there are more foodies now, right? People care more about food. They care about their lifestyle. They care about where they go out and eat. And so new brands need to be able to speak to that demographic.
Have you seen instances of people, of brands really wanting to do some kind of food thing and just like failing spectacularly? Not naming any brands, but like, where somebody just said, name them.
Name
Name if you want. Or things that have tried to do events and activations that just didn't go wrong, and like, why?
Right. Wow. I mean, I don't think I can do that. I'd love to talk about some brands that do it well,
why
maybe.
Don't we flip it? And if you want to trash somebody
positive,
afterwards,
not
go ahead.
Negative, right? We want to emulate good things, not. To start, the Standard Hotels, Angela DeMuga, who we work with the Standard Hotels, and Angela DeMuga, who's the creative director of food and beverage, is speaking later today. The Standard does a really amazing job of not only creating community, but also creating experiences that, help kind of define what that community is, but also help with sales, right? So for example, at the Standard East Village, they have this really great, in the wintertime, they put up these yurts, as in like a holiday or a cold place has a yurt, and they serve fondue in them. So they could have just served fondue in the restaurant at Narcissa, but instead they chose to erect these yurts, create an experience. It's like perfect for gathering with friends. They like have fur coats available for you to like wear, and there's
you can
like
use your
music
patio
playing
in the
it.
winter.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly. And so that's like a full experience that people can mark their calendars every single winter. I'm gonna go and have like a year experience with my friends. Yeah.
Interesting. We talked a bit about kind of breaking through the noise of everything else out there. What are some effective ways that you've seen restaurants or chefs break through the noise?
Yeah, I mean, I would say, I guess David Chang, as we all know, has done a really good job of breaking through the noise. And it's funny, I think now that I'm like post Momofuku, a lot of people probably come to us because of my background there. And I think people want me to turn them into Dave Chang and just as famous as him. But little do they know that it takes a lot more than just, one person.
It's not all you?
It's not all me, no. But if we were to use him as a case study in breaking through the noise is one, being as prolific as possible. And then two, also just understanding how food relates to other parts of culture, right? And that's something that we do work with our clients on is how do we connect you to the film industry? How do we connect you to the music industry, to fashion? Because, in this day and age, there's more celebrities, but they're all less famous, right? So everything is super fragmented. So the only way to really stay above that is to understand how you penetrate all different parts of culture. And not only just be big in food, but also be big in other industries. So we have to work twice as hard, pretty much.
But, that touches on, not all chefs are rock stars.
Right.
And not all restaurants are, of the moment
Yeah.
places, but they still have the desire to do these things and connect with guests. And you mentioned TGI Fridays, so on the thing between TGI Fridays and Momofuku, what's in a way kind of a learning curve for those restaurants that aren't all about that aren't in the papers every day, rock star.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's really about just. So I'll reference my favorite restaurant. My favorite restaurant is Odeon, which I think your average foodie person or high-end fine dining chef would balk at that and be like, gross, the food is disgusting. They're like, why would you love it? But it's consistent, the service is incredible, the maitre d' is like a character, and the room is really special, right? It's the lighting is perfect, and what I love about it is because it's an experience every time I go there. It's become kind of like a cultural hub for the downtown crowd, right? And you'll bump into friends, and going to Odeon is in and of itself an experience. Like I don't need to go to a bar necessarily because I can just go to Odeon and have that same kind of social experience. And Odeon isn't written about in the press, but they've just done a really good job of
at least not in the last decade.
Yeah, exactly. I guess
So
recently
long,
it has been covered more so because it has kind of seemed like a renaissance. But I think what they do really well is creating that experience, right? The food and the service is consistent across the board, but it's the experience of going there that makes them stand out. And they understand their customer and they understand their community, and they make it easy for you. And I think, for an average restaurateur, who cares about the press? Like we've had people that we've worked with, or case studies that we've seen of people who get a ton of press, but they have horrible sales and they have to close. It doesn't matter if you're on Bon Appetit's top 10. You could close in a year or two. That is a real thing. That happens a lot. And it's more about just caring about the actual customers who come in every single day and focusing on that community and building that community.
Speaking of community, we have a couple questions from the crowd.
Okay, cool.
What did you learn working on the Momofuku
gosh.
brand that helped you launch your own business?
That hard work is a real thing, and it does pay off in the end.
That's like a bumper sticker.
Yeah,
too,
yeah.
Right? Yeah. What are some new examples of experiences in dining and hospitality that excite you?
I am very excited about just understanding how, I don't know, I always look to other industries for inspiration of how we can grow as a company and how the brands that we work with can grow. And like music, for example, is a really fascinating industry, mostly because I think it's the closest to food, as in, there are musicians, just like there are chefs. Musicians make albums, just like chefs make cookbooks. Musicians can perform at a theater or concert venue, just like chefs can like do pop-ups. So if looking towards music, there are all of these ways that they've made money. Merchandise is one of them. Touring is another one. So how do we use those business models and apply them to the food industry? I think there's a lot more room for merchandise to be made in the food industry. Actually, I was just talking to Nikki from Russ and Daughters about this. A lot of restaurants make merch, but I don't think anyone has understood how to like really build it into like a legitimate stream of revenue. And same thing with like touring. Like, why can't chefs tour around the world to different venues like musicians do?
Excellent. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Cool.
Appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
Thank you.